Yasou, the Unforgiven, revealed. Yasou dashes to solemn victory, harnessing the raw power of the wind to alleviate his unmatched elemental swordsmanship. A former member of the Ionian martial school and the only student to have mastered the legendary wind technique, Yasou now lives a tumultuous life, drifting through Runeterra as he hunts the true killer of the Ionian elder he has sworn to protect. Yeah, guys, we got a new champion being revealed. Let's read more about him, shall we? So his passive, Way of the Wanderer. Intent, Yasuo's critical strike chance is doubled. And resolve, Yasou gains flow as he moves. The faster he moves, the faster his flow meter fills. When full, Yasou activates a brief shield after taking damage from enemy champions or monsters. His Q, which is Steel Tempest. Yasou thrusts forward with his sword, damaging all enemies on the line. Successfully landing Steel Tempest grants Yasou Gathering Storm attacks or stacks for a short period. The third stack of Gathering Storm causes Steel Tempest to send out a whirlwind that travels in a line and sends all enemies caught airborne. If Yasou casts Steel Tempest during Sweeping Blade, the ability strikes all enemies immediately around him. His W, which is Wind Wall. Passive. Dashing replenishes Yasuo's flow faster. And the active, Yasou creates a wall of wind that slowly drifts forward for a few seconds. The wall blocks all enemy projectiles. So, pretty much, if that's the case, it's good to, it'll, protect him from Heimerdinger's, rockets and the explosive, all that stuff. His E, which is Sweeping Blade. Yasou dashes a fixed distance through an enemy, dealing damage and marking them briefly. If Yasou uses Sweeping Blade multiple times in succession, the ability deals extra damage up to a cap. Yasou cannot use Sweeping Blade on an enemy that has already been marked. So it's kind of like Fiora's dash in a way, but can be used multiple times to just get around the battlefield, I guess. And his ultimate, his R, which is Last Breath. Yasou teleports to a nearby airborne enemy champion, briefly suspending them and all surrounding airborne enemies mid-air as he damages them. Once he lands, Yasou gains significant armor penetration against his enemy's bonus armor for an extended period of time. So, if you stack armor, he's going to mess you up, from what I understand. But also can only, use that on airborne enemies. I'm assuming not like knocked up, such as, from a Cho'Gath Rupture, but more airborne from Steel Tempest. Let's just, look at this screenshot, shall we? Nice and big. So, there he is. He looks almost like, who's that? He looks almost like one of the commanders from Bleach. Yes, I did watch that anime. I also read some of the manga, but yeah. So, yeah, he looks just like one of them. So, there we see him and Yi fighting. Right there, I guess he knocked Master Yi up in the air, knocked him airborne. That's what that's what they mean by airborne. Right there is him slashing forward with his ability. Obviously, again, that's just him kind of standing there. There's him and Yi attacking each other just passively. And there's that wind wall. That's kind of dope looking. Not gonna lie, that's kind of dope looking. That's awesome. Yasou is a sustained damage fighter with high mobility, strong utility, and damage output that ramps up the longer he survives in combat. The trade-off here comes in the form of low damage during Yasou's early game. It looks like they're intending him to be mid lane champion. Mid lane at least. Yasuo's early game fragility, rather. Yasuo's early game fragility makes him a champion best suited for one of the shortest lanes on Summer's Rift, the middle. He farms safest here, concentrating on building up his experience and gold as he itemizes his way to domination. But even though Yasou is his weakest in the early game, his strength and mobility still has the potential to surprise his enemies. Yasou can use Steel Tempest to last hit from a relatively safe distance, and if he needs to secure the backline minion gold, quick consecutive casts of Sweeping Blade send him dashing to and from, with Way of the Wanderer's shield absorbing some of the inevitable incoming damage. Yasou can use Sweeping Blade as a handy escape during gank attempts too, if he is caught between the enemy melee and caster minions. Using the ability to dash back and forth towards his own turret should help dissuade all but the most stubborn of junglers from pursuing. And first of all, grammar Nazi incoming, you never start a sentence with "and", ever. You never do that, ever. But reading on. And when the wind changes direction, careful timing turns Yasou into a deadly accomplice in friendly gank attempts. Stacking Steel Tempest properly and using Gathering Storm to toss his enemies skywards means initiation from the jungle is a relatively simple matter. And once the enemy is caught, Yasou uses Sweeping Blade to dash in and to get to work. Way of the Wanderer's critical strike boost helps Yasuo's attacks sting, while if he's unlocked Last Breath, the additional damage and crowd control makes kills all the more likely. In team fights, a melee monster with damage that increases the longer the team fights last, Yasuo's first priority is to stack Gathering Storm while weathering the enemy's initial onslaught. This is where Wind Wall comes into its own. Carefully positioning the wall between the enemy front and back lines allows Yasou to engage on the less threatening tanks and bruisers, generating Gathering Storm stacks with liberal use of Steel Tempest. Once a third cast is ready, Yasou rapidly uses Sweeping Blade to rush through the entire enemy line and position himself beside or behind the enemy squishies. The final Steel Tempest casts them skyward, opening up Last Breath, a lethal ability for anyone caught in the whirlwind. Enemies that manage to juke away from Yasuo's whirlwind aren't necessarily safe from Last Breath. Any knock-up ability that can be chained with Yasuo's ultimate makes him hugely synergetic with champions like Cho'Gath, Malphite, and Zyra. Once he's landed, Yasuo's huge bonus armor penetration buff, combined with the critical strike bonus from Way of the Wanderer, makes short work of even the tankiest of tanks. So, in fact, you can actually, I guess, as long as they are in the air when you cast it, you're good. So again, that Cho'Gath Rupture, Malphite Ultimate, Zyra Ult, stuff like that. And the story behind him. His quote, "The story of a sword is inked in blood." Yasou is a man of resolve, an agile swordsman who wields the wind itself to cut down his foes. But this once proud warrior has been disgraced by false accusation and forced into a desperate fight for survival. With the world turned against him, he will do everything in his power to bring the guilty to justice and restore his honor. Once a brilliant pupil at the renowned Ionian school, or sword school, Yasou was the only student in a generation to master the legendary wind technique. Many believed that he was destined to become a great hero. However, his fate was changed forever when Noxus invaded. Yasou was charged with guarding an Ionian elder, but foolishly, believing his blade alone could make the difference, left his post to join the fray. By the time he returned, the elder had been slain. Disgraced, Yasou willingly turned himself in, prepared to pay for his failure with his life. He was shocked, however, to find himself accused not just of I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, but of the murder itself. Though confused and racked with guilt, he knew the assassin would go unpunished if he did not act. Yasou raised his sword against the school and fought his way free. Knowing his treason would turn all of Ionia against him. Now truly alone for the first time in his life, he sets out to find the real Elder's killer, or the Elder's real killer. Yasou spent the next several years wandering the land, seeking any clue that might lead him to the murderer. All the while he relentlessly hunted by his former allies, continually forced to fight or die. His mission drove him ever forward until he was tracked down by by the one foe he dreaded the most, his own brother, Yoon. Bound by a common code of honor, the two warriors bowed and drew their swords. Silently they circled one another silently they circled one another under the moonlight. When they finally charged forward, Yoon was no match for Yasou. With a single flash of steel, he cut his brother down. Yasou dropped his weapon and rushed to Yoon's side. Overcome with emotion, he demanded to know how his own kin could think him guilty. Yoon spoke. The elder was killed by wind technique. Who else could it be? Understanding swept over Yasou as he suddenly realized why he had been accused. He had professed his innocence once more and begged his brother's forgiveness. Tears streamed down Yasu's face as his brother passed in his arms. Yasou buried Yoon under the rising sun, but could take no time to mourn. Others would be after him before long. His brother's revelation had given Yasou newfound purpose. He now had the clue that would lead to the true killer. Swearing an oath, he gathered his belongings and, with one last look at Yoon's grave, set out with the wind at his back. Damn. So, yeah. That's a story and a half. Now, are we ever going to see who... Like, are we ever going to find the killer? That's my question. But, yeah, guys, hope you all enjoyed it. Again, sorry I'm not really all that informative, but just quickly looking over, all of the abilities right here, I can see why they want him in the middle. I honestly can. Much like Zed, he's squishy. I mean, I can see him being played in the jungle very, very effectively, but I have a feeling he's one of those assassins that's just good in middle. Again, like Zed, like Kennen, Akali, squishy. You wouldn't send them to any other lane unless Kennen's like ADCing or something, or top for whatever reason. But, I can definitely see why they want to implement Yasou in this fashion. With Windwall is going to add just that much more depth, and I'm wondering if it'll block even stuff like, Nami's ultimate. I doubt it will block like Nami's ultimate or Sona's ultimate, but abilities such as, again, the Mind like anything from, say, Ziggs or who else? Heimerdinger, for instance, except for like the turrets from Heimer. Let's see, projectiles. Yeah, that's gonna have to be like the ult from Jinx, for instance, too, because that's technically a projectile. You know, anything like that. That's amazing. You know, just being able to like, oh, hey, sweeping or wind wall, lol. That projectile just got blocked. Noob. That's gonna add just a whole new field of depth to the game. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. As always, my name has been Shadowswelm, and I will talk to you all next time.